Imagine a life where every choice is taken from you, where innocence is stolen, and yet, in the shadows of despair, courage quietly blooms. Picture a young woman whose heart bore the weight of unimaginable loss, yet whose spirit refused to be broken, whose love became an act of both defiance and mercy. The young woman at the center of this story was born into a world that offered her almost no choice. Yet her early life was filled with moments of fleeting innocence and glimpses of potential that were tragically cut short. From the very beginning, her life was defined by constraints imposed by a system that viewed her not as a human being with dreams and desires, but as property to be owned and used. Even as a child, she would have been aware of the invisible walls surrounding her, the unspoken rules that dictated who she could trust, how she must behave, and the dangers that lurked in every corner of her environment. In the simplicity of her early years, there may have been moments of laughter, curiosity, and wonder, fleeting as they were, when she explored the boundaries of her world with the natural curiosity of youth. Her beauty, often remarked upon even in her earliest years, became both a blessing and a curse. It drew attention, admiration, and desire, yet it also made her a target of the abuses that were endemic in her surroundings. The combination of innocence and physical beauty created a tragic tension in her life, for what made her remarkable to those around her also made her vulnerable to exploitation and sorrow. Even within the confines of slavery, she would have developed a sense of self and identity, perhaps through small acts of creativity, moments of connection with others, or the bonds she formed with those who shared her suffering. Children, even in oppressive circumstances, find ways to express their humanity, to seek out love and companionship, and to dream of a life beyond the immediate demands placed upon them. Her early experiences would have shaped her understanding of the world, teaching her lessons about trust, resilience, and the ways in which power and cruelty could intersect in deeply personal ways. Yet, every day would have been a reminder that her freedom and autonomy were constantly denied. The contrast between her inner life, full of imagination and emotion, and the external reality of confinement and control created a tension that would only intensify as she grew older. As she matured, her beauty would have become more pronounced, and the awareness of her position in the world would have grown sharper. The attention it drew could have been confusing and frightening, mixing admiration with exploitation, care with cruelty, and fleeting kindness with relentless demands. This awareness of her own body as an object in a society that denied her rights and humanity would have shaped her understanding of the world in profound ways. She would have begun to grasp the impossible choices that lay ahead, recognizing that the very attributes that made her remarkable to others could also bring her suffering, pain, and loss. Her early life, filled with moments of personal growth and self-discovery, became inseparable from the larger forces of oppression and control that dictated her existence. Within her childhood and adolescence, there may have been moments of rebellion, small assertions of independence, or fleeting joys that allowed her to feel the richness of her own humanity despite the limitations imposed upon her. Perhaps she found solace in simple routines, the quiet companionship of others in similar circumstances, or the small ways she could express herself without drawing punishment. Each of these moments would have been a testament to her inner strength, the persistence of hope even in an environment designed to crush it. Yet, these moments were fragile, constantly threatened by a world that could turn at any moment to impose pain, fear, and loss. The juxtaposition of potential and limitation, innocence and exploitation, beauty and vulnerability defined the contours of her early life, shaping the woman she would become and the tragic decisions that awaited her in the years to come. Her early life, therefore, was not merely a prelude to suffering. It was a complex tapestry of human experience in miniature, marked by curiosity, resilience, fleeting joy, and the relentless imposition of external control. It was in these years that the foundations of her character were laid, the emotional and psychological patterns that would guide her through the impossible challenges of motherhood under oppression, the grief of loss, and the courage required to navigate a world that offered her little mercy. The innocence she carried with her, tinged with an early awareness of vulnerability, became both a source of strength and a lens through which the tragedy of her later life would be understood. The life of the young woman was marked by profound betrayal and relentless exploitation, a reality that no human should endure, yet was made all the more unbearable by the circumstances of her existence. From the earliest years, she was denied the basic dignity of choice, of bodily autonomy, and of protection from harm. As she grew older, the exploitation became more pronounced, extending beyond the physical to the psychological and emotional dimensions of her life. Her beauty, a natural gift that should have brought admiration or joy, became a tool through which others exerted control and power over her. In a world that measured her worth not by her humanity, but by the use she could provide to others, she became an unwilling participant in circumstances that continually violated her sense of self. The betrayal she faced was compounded by the very structure of her environment, which systematically dehumanized her, stripped her of agency, and allowed the suffering inflicted upon her to be seen as ordinary or acceptable. Being forced to bear children in such conditions exemplifies the deepest form of exploitation. She was compelled to carry life into the world without having any choice in the matter, a cruel inversion of the nurturing role that motherhood can represent. These children, born into a reality dictated by oppression, became symbols of both her strength and her profound vulnerability. The act of bringing life into such a context was not an expression of freedom or joy, but a forced compliance with a system designed to extract from her the most intimate and sacred aspects of her being. Each pregnancy would have been an ordeal, not merely for the physical demands it imposed, but for the emotional and psychological burden it carried. She was acutely aware of the fate awaiting her children, of the ways in which they too would be objectified, controlled, or taken from her, and yet she had no means to resist the forces that dictated her life. The betrayal extended beyond the physical to the erosion of trust and personal security. Those around her, even those who might have seemed to offer kindness, existed within a system that demanded their complicity or passivity. Relationships could not be built on genuine care or mutual respect. Instead, they were tainted by coercion, fear, and power imbalances. The psychological weight of this betrayal is unimaginable, as it forced her to navigate not only her own suffering, but also the constant awareness of how others might exploit or manipulate her circumstances. Every smile, every word of apparent kindness could be a mask for exploitation or control. She was forced into a world where her instincts for trust, connection, and protection were continually challenged, leaving her to develop a keen awareness of the dangers surrounding her. Her exploitation also carried a moral and ethical dimension, as the decisions imposed upon her were never truly her own. She was made to act in ways that conflicted with her desires, her sense of morality, and her capacity for agency. The world around her demanded compliance while offering no safety or recognition, forcing her to endure a lifetime of violations that were both intimate and systemic. In this sense, the exploitation she experienced was not only a personal tragedy, but also a reflection of the moral corruption embedded in the society that allowed such circumstances to exist. Her body, her emotions, and her very identity were treated as tools to fulfill the desires and needs of others, and her humanity was consistently denied, ignored, or suppressed. Yet even within this profound betrayal, she developed resilience and quiet acts of resistance. The choices she made, even under duress, were often guided by an acute understanding of her situation and a determination to preserve what little autonomy remained. She may have navigated her suffering with subtle defiance, protecting what she could of herself and her children in ways that were invisible to those who sought to dominate her. These acts, though small and often unseen, were powerful assertions of her enduring humanity in the face of relentless exploitation. The exploitation she endured was thus not only a testament to the cruelty of her circumstances, but also a lens through which her courage, intelligence, and quiet resistance can be understood and honored. Despite the unimaginable exploitation and betrayal she endured, the young woman assumed the role of mother with a depth of love, sacrifice, and courage that few could comprehend. Her motherhood was not born of choice but imposed by the circumstances around her, Yet within this forced reality, she found ways to care, protect, and assert her humanity in the face of overwhelming adversity. Each child she bore carried with them both the promise of life and the weight of inevitable suffering, as they were born into a world that would judge, control, and exploit them before they could ever understand the fullness of their existence. In this context, her decision to bury her children, though heart-wrenching, can be understood as an act of protection and mercy, a way to shield them from the cruelty of a society that would see them as nothing more than extensions of ownership, tools for labor, or objects of desire. In these actions, her maternal instinct became inseparable from her will to resist, to assert agency, and to preserve dignity in whatever small forms she could claim. The act of motherhood under these conditions was a constant negotiation between love and despair, hope and impossibility. Each child she carried was a reminder of her vulnerability, the limitations of her control, and the injustices she faced. Yet they were also living evidence of her enduring strength and capacity for care. She experienced the joys of life, moments of connection, of noticing the uniqueness of each child, of offering warmth and comfort, as well as the profound sorrow of knowing that the world would never allow them to live fully free. This duality of creating life in a world designed to oppress it defined the extraordinary weight she carried. Her choices were not simple or easy, and the emotional toll of motherhood in these circumstances was compounded by the relentless demands placed upon her by forces beyond her control. In burying her children, she exercised a form of agency rarely afforded to those in her position. Each act was deliberate, wrought from deep contemplation, fear, and a desire to protect. By ensuring their final resting places were hidden, she shielded them from further harm, exploitation, and the indignities of a society that would have commodified their existence. The act of burial, though tragic, represents a reclaiming of power in a world where she had been denied almost all forms of autonomy. It was a deeply moral decision, guided by love and necessity rather than malice, and it illustrates the extraordinary ethical and emotional intelligence she possessed. Through this act, she transcended the passive role imposed upon her and engaged in a form of silent rebellion, a resistance against the complete dehumanization of herself and her children. Her maternal sacrifice also illustrates the profound inner resilience she developed in response to systemic oppression. Despite the grief, despair, and isolation that surrounded her, she continued to navigate life with a strength and dignity that defied the limitations imposed upon her. Her love for her children was not limited to fleeting moments of joy or care. It extended into difficult decisions made in the shadows, actions that balanced survival, protection, and morality. She carried immense emotional burdens while still demonstrating the capacity to act with foresight and courage, ensuring that even in the face of tragedy, she maintained some measure of control over her own life and the fates of those she loved. The story of her maternal experience challenges conventional notions of motherhood by presenting a form of care that exists within extreme adversity, where love is inseparable from suffering and protection is inseparable from difficult ethical decisions. Her sacrifices highlight the ways in which maternal love can manifest not only through nurturing and guidance, but also through acts of courage, resistance, and protection under conditions that are morally and physically unforgiving. These choices, made in the absence of choice itself, demonstrate a profound depth of character and illuminate the human capacity to navigate impossible circumstances with compassion, resilience, and intelligence. Her role as a mother, therefore, was not a passive experience defined solely by suffering. It was an active engagement with the harsh realities imposed upon her, a testament to her strength and a reflection of her extraordinary moral and emotional insight. It is through her maternal sacrifices and silent acts of protection that her humanity shines most vividly, offering a glimpse into the enduring power of love even in the darkest of circumstances. The young woman's life was defined not only by external oppression, but also by the deep psychological and emotional burdens she carried as a result of her circumstances. From an early age, she experienced a world that stripped her of autonomy, subjected her to exploitation, and forced her to confront the fragility of life and the inevitability of suffering. The psychological trauma she endured was immense, layering fear, grief, and helplessness upon the natural development of her identity and emotional world. Yet, even amid these relentless pressures, she displayed extraordinary resilience, an inner strength that allowed her to survive, to navigate impossible situations, and to retain her sense of self despite constant threats to her humanity. Her emotional resilience was not merely passive endurance. It was an active, ongoing negotiation with pain, loss, and the complex realities of her life, requiring intelligence, awareness, and courage at every turn. The constant exposure to danger and exploitation forced her to develop acute emotional awareness. She had to read the intentions of those around her, anticipate threats, and protect herself and her children in subtle and often invisible ways. This awareness created a heightened sensitivity to human behavior, a psychological acuity born from necessity rather than choice. Every interaction carried the potential for harm, manipulation, or betrayal, and yet she learned to navigate these encounters with remarkable poise and strategic thought. Her resilience was therefore not merely a function of survival instinct, but a sophisticated, adaptive response to a world in which misjudgment could have catastrophic consequences. The grief she experienced over the loss of her children, compounded by the knowledge that she could not fully protect them, created profound emotional burdens. Each child she bore and ultimately buried represented not only a life that might have been, but also the emotional cost of existing within a system that denied her any control over her body or her family. Her grief was intense, intimate, and deeply personal, yet it was often private and invisible, carried alone in the quiet moments between duties and demands. The psychological trauma of these repeated losses could have easily led to despair or a sense of futility, yet she found ways to continue forward, to maintain some sense of purpose and agency, and to endure despite the impossibility of her circumstances. Her emotional resilience was closely tied to her capacity for reflection, foresight, and ethical decision-making. The choices she made were informed not just by survival, but by a sophisticated understanding of morality and consequence. In a world where the lines between right and wrong were constantly manipulated by external forces, she found ways to assert her own ethical compass, even in acts as difficult as burying her children. These actions required immense emotional strength, as she had to reconcile her grief, guilt, and love with the harsh realities imposed upon her. The ability to make such decisions in the midst of trauma reflects a depth of psychological sophistication and moral intelligence that is extraordinary, particularly given the isolation and oppression that defined her life. Her resilience also extended to her self-conception and identity. While the external world sought to define her as property, as a means to an end, she maintained an inner life rich with thought, emotion, and imagination. This preservation of self amidst relentless dehumanization was itself an act of courage. She cultivated inner resources, empathy, reflection, intuition, that allowed her to navigate not only the external threats of her environment, but also the internal challenges of fear, grief, and despair. Through these mental and emotional strategies, she was able to endure, to act with intention, and to maintain a sense of humanity even when the world around her sought to erase it. Her psychological resilience ultimately illustrates the capacity of the human spirit to survive extreme adversity without fully succumbing to despair. It was through this resilience that she navigated the impossible choices of motherhood, loss, and survival, demonstrating that even in the most oppressive conditions, emotional strength, intelligence, and the capacity for moral reflection can endure. Her life serves as a powerful example of how trauma can coexist with courage, grief can coexist with purpose, and oppression can coexist with a profound inner vitality that refuses to be extinguished. The life of the young woman cannot be fully understood without situating it within the broader societal and historical context that shaped every aspect of her existence. She lived in a world defined by systemic injustice, a society that was structured to deny her autonomy, commodify her body, and strip her of basic human dignity. Her experiences were not isolated tragedies, but direct consequences of a legal, social, and economic system that normalized oppression and dehumanization. The laws, customs, and social hierarchies surrounding her treated her not as a person, but as property, a means through which others could accumulate wealth, exert power, and satisfy their desires. Every choice she made, every action she took, occurred within the confines of this oppressive structure, and the cruelty she endured was both personal and systemic, embedded in the very fabric of the society in which she lived. The historical reality of her environment meant that she could not rely on the protection or intervention of institutions, neighbors, or authorities. Society's moral compass had been distorted to accommodate the exploitation of people like her, creating a world where injustice was ordinary and cruelty was invisible or justified. Her suffering was perpetuated not by isolated individuals alone, but by a collective indifference sanctioned by law and social custom. In this sense, her life exemplifies how societal structures can amplify personal tragedies, turning private grief into a reflection of collective moral failure. She was forced to navigate an existence in which survival required constant negotiation with forces that were indifferent to her pain, and where the well-being of her children was constantly threatened by systemic forces beyond her control. The societal injustice she faced also shaped the very nature of her personal choices. When she buried her children, it was not simply an act of private grief. It was a response to a society that offered no protection, no justice, and no recognition of their humanity. Her decisions were influenced by the harsh knowledge that the outside world would exploit or harm them, and that the legal and social systems were designed to strip them of any opportunity for freedom or dignity. In this light, her actions can be understood as both maternal and subversive, a quiet assertion of moral agency within a context where formal avenues for protection or justice did not exist. Each act of care, each measure of protection she could implement, became a subtle rebellion against the overwhelming tide of oppression, demonstrating both intelligence and courage in the face of impossible circumstances. Her story also illuminates the ways in which systemic injustice erodes trust, community, and human connection. In a society that treated some people as property, every relationship was influenced by power imbalances, coercion, and fear. Trust was fragile and easily broken, as even those who might have wished to offer support were constrained by societal norms or self-interest. The young woman had to develop extraordinary perceptiveness to navigate these relationships, recognizing who could be relied upon, who posed a threat, and how to protect herself and her children in an environment where betrayal was both common and sanctioned. Her emotional and moral intelligence, therefore, must be understood in the context of a society designed to suppress and exploit her, requiring her to maintain vigilance and resilience at every stage of life. Furthermore, her story reveals the deep moral failings of a society that allows such circumstances to exist. The systemic oppression that shaped her life highlights the capacity for human institutions to perpetuate cruelty under the guise of normality, profit, or tradition. It emphasizes how injustice is not only an individual failing but a societal one, embedded in laws, customs, and collective indifference. Her life serves as a stark reminder that oppression is sustained not merely by direct acts of harm, but by the broader structures that enable and normalize it, leaving individuals to navigate impossible choices within a world that has stripped them of recourse and protection. Her experience within this societal and historical context also underscores the extraordinary courage required to survive and act with integrity in such circumstances. Every decision, every act of care or protection was made against the backdrop of a system that sought to undermine her agency and humanity. Her ability to preserve dignity, make ethical choices, and assert a measure of control over her own life and the lives of her children reflects a profound resilience shaped not only by personal strength, but by the necessity of resisting a society structured to deny her power. The broader context of injustice, therefore, illuminates the significance of her actions and the depth of her courage, highlighting how the forces of history and society intersected with her personal life to create a story of profound human endurance, moral fortitude, and silent rebellion. The story of the young woman ultimately leaves behind a legacy of remarkable strength and enduring human spirit, a testament to resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. Despite the injustices, exploitation, and losses she endured, her life reflects an extraordinary capacity to act with agency, courage, and moral insight even when nearly all external avenues of control were denied to her. Her legacy is not measured in wealth, status, or societal recognition, but in the quiet, powerful ways she navigated an oppressive world, asserting humanity, love, and resistance in acts both visible and invisible. The choices she made, particularly regarding her children, were deeply moral and thoughtful, demonstrating that even in situations where society sought to strip individuals of dignity, one could still exercise profound ethical judgment and emotional intelligence. Her strength was evident in the ways she bore her circumstances with resilience. Every moment of her life required negotiation with fear, grief, and the daily realities of oppression, yet she endured. This endurance was not passive, it was active, a constant engagement with the challenges of her world that required alertness, foresight, and moral courage. She learned to navigate a society that sought to control every aspect of her being, finding ways to assert agency, even in small measures, and to preserve a sense of identity that was uniquely her own. The very act of surviving, of making deliberate decisions in a world structured to deny her autonomy, reflects a profound inner strength that resonates across time. Her legacy also lies in the moral clarity and ethical considerations she demonstrated. The act of bearing her children, though tragic, exemplifies a form of courage and compassion that goes beyond conventional notions of heroism. In circumstances where her children's lives were fraught with imminent danger, oppression, and lack of protection, she made a choice that sought to preserve their dignity and spare them from further suffering. This decision illustrates a deep understanding of the responsibilities of love, the limits of one's control, and the moral imperatives that guide action even in impossible situations. Through such acts, she demonstrated that human agency can persist even when formal power is stripped away, leaving an enduring example of ethical resilience in a morally compromised world. The human spirit she embodied was also evident in her emotional resilience. Despite experiencing profound grief, isolation, and repeated loss, she maintained the capacity for empathy, reflection, and care. She cultivated an inner life rich with moral reasoning and emotional insight, which allowed her to endure experiences that might have crushed others. Her ability to navigate these intense emotions while still making thoughtful, deliberate decisions is a reflection of a psychological strength that remains awe-inspiring. This resilience underscores the broader lesson that human beings can retain dignity, compassion, and intelligence even in the most oppressive circumstances, and that the spirit can remain unbroken even when the body and external conditions are constrained. Her story also serves as a reminder of the power of agency in small, quiet acts. While she could not control the larger systems of injustice around her, she exercised control over what she could, demonstrating that even limited autonomy can carry profound significance. Her acts of protection, care, and moral decision-making are examples of how agency is not always measured by grand gestures or societal recognition, but by the courage to act ethically and deliberately in circumstances that leave few options. These acts, while invisible to the world, leave a lasting imprint on the understanding of human strength and resistance. Finally, her legacy is one of inspiration and reflection, urging us to consider the resilience, moral courage, and emotional depth required to endure such a life. It challenges contemporary audiences to recognize the humanity in those who suffer under oppression and to honor the quiet, powerful ways individuals navigate adversity. Her life, though marked by tragedy, exemplifies the enduring strength of the human spirit, the ability to act with compassion, maintain dignity, and exercise moral judgment in the harshest of circumstances. Her story resonates as a timeless testament to courage, resilience, and the profound depth of human character, illustrating that even in extreme adversity, the human spirit can shine with extraordinary power and grace. Her story is not one of surrender, but of extraordinary strength, resilience, and the enduring human spirit. It teaches us that even in the darkest circumstances, acts of love, courage, and moral conviction can shine brighter than oppression. Though her life was marked by sorrow and impossible choices, her legacy reminds us that the human spirit can endure, resist, and even protect what it loves most, leaving a timeless testament to strength, compassion, and dignity in the face of adversity.